I would say this. That's almost as bad. This isn't true, but it's almost as bad a moral as Hitler. He is digital Hitler. No. Hey, Internets. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about Upload, Season 1, Episodes 9 and 10, Update Eve, and Freond. Hence, we're talking about the end of Season 1. We'll also give our thoughts, perhaps, on what we can expect for Season 2. Typically, what I do is I say what happens at the beginning and the end, so I'll do that. Beginning of Episode 9, we see Freond. It is a place where there's like a competitor to Lakeview that apparently is like hey, you can build your own afterlife. And it's incredibly popular, and people are flocking to it. She comments that, basically Nathan had that idea, but they tried to hide it from him, but sounds like somehow it got out. We'll talk more about that in a second, because it's got some disturbing overtones. But anyway, so there's Freond. Then we end, very kind of cool twist for Season 2-ish, where Nathan is talking to Nora, or she's doing most of the talking, via no video. He's got a 2 gig plan. He's in the 2 gigville, and he's running out of data. She says she loves him. She's waiting for him to respond. He runs out of data. She assumes he just blew her off, so she heads off to go off the grid with Byron. And then the big twist is that Ingrid shows up, gives him a gig of data to tell him, by the way, I uploaded. Yes. Hence, I killed myself to be here, even though you rejected me, and now we're together. His reaction is like, what? And he uses up his gig, and he's frozen again. So that's where we leave off. So big changes. Yes. For Season 2. Before we get into it, Paul, what are your thoughts here on episodes 9 and 10?
I liked the end of it. I felt like the tone and quality was fairly consistent throughout the show, and so the end, maintained that. And for me, the most important parts of it are the relationship between Nora and Nathan, and and it's very inventive in how it shows this world. So I like the world. The comedy bits are funny, and they're mostly rooted in personality or character. So all that stuff continued on, and so it makes me think about the world. So it stuff that happened, even though they made choices perhaps I wouldn't have made, I still enjoyed it. So.
Okay, very good. I enjoyed episode 9. I thought it really carried the mystery theme together. It carried the Nora and Nathan relationship angle together. They have the thing where the update's coming, and they're acknowledging they care about each other, but he might forget about this. There's a cool moment there. She decides, even though he's going to forget about her, that it's worth it because he deserves to have his actual memories back. So she makes a tough choice to perhaps make him forget about her, but to do something for him. And so there's a lot of cool things there. I thought that episode 10, to me, unfortunately, I thought the writing let him down a bit. I thought they had some ideas of where they wanted to be in Season 2, and I thought, for one thing, they made Nora kind of stupid. Like she's a bright character, and she's been an excellent lead for the entire show. And then here at the end, it's like she is well aware he's on a 2 gig plan. He tells her that. She shows up in his 2 gig little cell to talk to him. She knows he's on borrowed time. She also knows he used most of his plan trying to save her life when she was running away from the guy trying to kill her.
Right.
And yet, she's like, look, I just want to tell you, I love you very much. You have something you want to tell me? And I get it. In that very moment, perhaps, even though I would even argue maybe not even then, but perhaps she might be like, oh, wow, he just dissed me in the moment. But Come on. Later we see that she's now contacted Byron. They've met up. They're getting in a car. They're heading out. She's had plenty of time to consider maybe the reason he didn't respond, me being tech person who works at the upload folks, maybe I might realize he ran out of data. The one person who would most know that would probably be Nora, and then at least for her to entertain that thought.
Right.
Somewhere, if they'd have just brought that up to say, like, I wonder if he ran out of data. No. I'd almost be fine with that. But she didn't.
Right.
Ever.
But we were talking about this before. And while you could assume that she is basically assuming that he's telling her that, that she doesn't care, and what he was wanted to say is basically, no, I do love you, or whatever. In the sort of thing that he was telling her, though, is run for it. You're in danger. So don't think about me. So she's like, you know what? My relationship's so important to you. I don't care about all this other stuff. And the message he was kind of delivering to her was, you should run. So you could argue that, at least I might argue, actually, that the thing that she's saying is like, maybe you shouldn't be putting your, because you don't really know me. And, maybe it is kind of a lot for you to invest in this, considering, You
don't think he was saying run because he cared about her? It's like, I don't want you to die?
But that's the only message that she was hearing, because he couldn't communicate anything other than that.
Right.
So, it's sort of like, you could argue that maybe kind of the message he was getting is, oh, you shouldn't, sacrifice everything just to be with me, because maybe, I'm not at the level that you're expressing, basically.
Okay. I thought it felt like a contrived kind of, oh, look, we'll have this moment where she declares her love and then he doesn't.
It fits into helping it. The same way that earlier in the show, like, I've discovered this thing about him and I don't really feel like I know him. But you can again argue that they haven't really known each other all that long. And so sometimes when you haven't known someone really for all that long, large revelations can actually, really affect what you know about
you fill in the gaps. Yeah, I hear you. So we're talking about the fact that they both learn basically around the same time that it appears, this is another thing that kind of bothers me, but it appears that he screwed over his friend Jamie for cash. That it was like, oh, we were in on this deal together, and then he decided to sell the code independent of Jamie to Ingrid's dad. I think his name's Oliver. Right. And we see a little clip where he's saying, oh, it would take a lot of money for me to want to do that. And then that's all we see, which, by the way, is not saying yes. But but they both see that clip and decide, yep, you were bad in real life because you screwed over your friend and you sold him out. And so that is what, first of all, okay, let's go back for real quick. This is another thing that I didn't really care for in the last episode. I didn't like the way that Nathan reacted. So he learns this information. Oh, wow, I tried to screw over Jamie. Then he pretends he doesn't know Nora, even though he does?
Right.
What was his end game? Was he going to pretend like that forever? Was he just going to be like, like that? That doesn't sound like something an adult would do. It feels, again, contrived. They wanted to have a moment where it seems like he's forgotten her, so Nora has to react. Based on the evidence, I didn't see him, because that's actually one of the things he says when he pretends to have forgotten her. Is, wow, you're really depressing. Something like that. He says, I forgot the exact lingo, but it's something like you're being depressing, person who I don't know.
You're kind of a bummer or something. Yeah, he says.
Yeah, that is a dick move. Knowing he knows what he knows.
Right.
He's just saying, hey, person who loves me, I have no idea who you are anymore.
Well,
oh, wow, you sound sad.
But that's an old romantic
trope. Screw you!
That's an old romantic trope, right? When somebody feels like, wow, I'm ashamed of who I am. I can see actually the kind of person that I am. I'm going to exhibit this behavior because I'm embarrassed, and I want to show you this because I kind of want to distance myself and maybe, so...
Well, I'll just say this. Maybe it's a trope that should find its way to the dustbin of history because it just doesn't feel real. Anyway, so that was a moment that I also was like, They felt like they wanted to be here in this plot place, so they made him pretend to forget. This felt Plus, I would say this. That's almost as bad. This isn't true, but it's almost as bad a moral as Hitler. He is digital Hitler. No, it's almost as bad a moral failing in my mind as the screwing over his partner for cash. Like that's very hurtful. He's being very hurtful in that moment to Nora, and it's for what really? Like, it just. Anyway, that feels wrong, and I think that's like remember earlier, a couple episodes back, I was like, put a little minus in the Nora column for making him believe he could walk on water twice. Yes. Here I'm putting a minus in the Nathan column for making her think he'd forgotten all about her and then saying, you're bumming me out. They're perfect! The minuses, 2 minuses make a positive. So that didn't necessarily work for me that great. And then, yes, Nora finding out this information that he had screwed over his friend, she uses that to say, well, I don't know that I can trust you with our relationship anymore, which that's less annoying than the pretending to forget you thing. But it doesn't quite ring true. But I see where they're coming from. They're like, hey, this is how you treat your friends and acquaintances. Perhaps that's the way you would treat me. But there's a lot of difference between this is my business partner and there's money on the line and my parents, my mom is in financial straits, and versus, hey, I'm in a loving relationship with you and I want to, treat you right. She seems like she's almost finding a reason to break up with him. See? Well, there's this thing I saw. Saw. Look at the rest of the footage, by the way.
But there are certainly other complicating factors, like this whole thing about what's going on with the danger and all that. So
right, and Ingrid.
It's a big, it's basically like, oh, my life is a mess. Why don't you join me? Why don't you become a part of my life?
I did like this. I like the fact that we were asking the question of what the hell was the deal with the hanging vegetables earlier, and they paid that off.
Yes,
it's a ladder.
Yeah.
So the would-be assassin uses it to climb into an apartment. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll take that. One of the little incredibly powerful things. It seemed almost incidental at the time, but then you're like, whoa. Was in the episode 9 when they're having a staff meeting virtually, and she steals this little.
Yes.
It looks like a pen, essentially, from one of the techies. Turns out, in the right hands, Nathan's.
Yes.
You could just, you could change your entire digital world. You can also affect the real world. Like, it's a big deal for that dude to have that. And I assume
what way did it affect the real world?
He killed a dude.
Oh, yes, because, he was able to get access.
He affected the elevator and then, bashed him to bits.
Yes, that's true.
So he can actually reach out and kill folks in the real world.
Yes, right.
I assume.
Ultron. You're right.
You're right. Yeah, he is Ultron. So I assume in season 2 we're going to see that perhaps he's still got that thing, by the way. If he comes back online at some point, which he will, right? You're not going to have the whole season of him being great.
No, you probably won't.
He'll get some data. With that data, he could do a lot with his little magic tool, right? He could be like, hey, look, I've only got 2 gigs. Or do I? So I feel like the 2 gig area will get a huge upgrade thanks to his, that one little action. So a very nice thing that Nora did for him, basically made him a god.
Huh.
That's my thought. Anyway. But let's go back to...
Is that your theory?
That's not the theory. I have a different theory. That's just another one. I think we'll see that thing come to play in season 2.
Okay.
But let's go back to Freon. So Freon, not Freon, like for your car. Freond is very close in name to Beyond, which was the product that Nathan and Jamie were trying to sell. So the implication is that somebody took his code and is now using it for this other thing, I think. Perhaps, right? Like somebody stole the code, or he sold it. Let's say he sold it to Oliver, Ingrid's dad, and now someone's making money. Jamie, Oliver, somebody's making money off of that code with Freon.
Right.
I think Freon is some version of his code. Am I wrong or no?
Well, certainly it's the same idea. I'm not sure, if it's part of Jamie's effort or if it's part of Ingrid's father's effort. I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay. I thought maybe it had
part
some
of Jamie's effort, though. I feel like he would be, obviously, Freon been talking about for a while. So the fact that he's sort of like, hey, I'm trying to get this thing or whatever, it's like that may be what he's working on to make happen. And it feels like you have less of that sort of energy behind, because actually, I presume that if Ingrid's father was going to be doing something, then it would be involved with the place where his father's or family.
Yeah, Lakeview. Yeah, as opposed to like giving people more control.
Right, so it'd be some sort of free Lakeview or something like that.
Okay, good call. So it's probably more of a Jamie-centered thing, perhaps.
I think so, yeah, and it would be very weird if it was like, no, that's somebody else's, not Jamie's. His is something else, so that would be very strange.
Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things, actually, besides the Freon that they established, they have a little bit more of the Luddite thing with
Nora's dad.
Nora's dad is like, hey, and that's what I thought she was going to do, because she seemed convinced that her life was, so unless she's lying to what's his name, dude,
Byron,
unless she's lying to Byron,
I thought that she was going with Byron out to go off the grid. Am I wrong?
Because he's like, hey, we're going on a vacation. And it's like, what? It doesn't sound like the way, because...
That's a good point. I have to go back and watch that. I got the impression that she was taking him and going off the grid. But maybe you're right. It is weird that he would be like, cool! Yeah. Sign me up! This sounds great. Exactly. Like, wait, what? Right, For how long?
So, I'm not sure if either A, she lied to him, which would be surprising. Like, wait, this doesn't look like, or,
But this is, I think, the darkest aspect of the show so far, and it was played as a comic thing. But if you think about it, it is dark. It's the fact that I went back and rewatched just to make sure. Yep. So Freon has come up. They've got stores all over the country, and they've like, oh, it's not even open for 2 days, and they have people waiting in line, right? And they're like, oh yeah, it only is like the first 10 million, something like that, and they're selling fast. And there's this woman with her kid, a little baby, and she's like, I'm signing him up. I mean, what life has he got anyway? You're talking about tens of millions of people killing themselves to get uploaded into a digital world because this life is just not worth living. And like, whoa! That's dark.
Another interesting thing, like, is that what they're talking about? I mean, I'm wondering if she's just sort of like getting her signed up, and then if she gets sick, that's the way that she's not a terrible mother.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, good point. Maybe you sign up, and then like when the time comes, maybe that's it. But it felt like we're ready. We're going to jump into this place.
Right? Yeah, it did.
And millions of us will all die.
Yeah.
Which was, I was like, whoa. Anyway, so that's a thing, though.
I mean, it's like, that's one of the interesting things about it, like, where I want them to explain more how the world works, because, it's still very strange where apparently it's normal that your head gets destroyed in order to become a part of this. That seems to be the actual thing.
We get the impression that that's what Ingrid did, and also that Ingrid must have committed suicide, right? She wasn't dying unless for some reason
it's like not like committing suicide since you live virtually.
True.
And your consciousness exists. So that's the way that this culture is different than ours, and that when your body dies, your brain can live on in a digital fashion. So it's just a weird sort of thing where and the only part, like, before we saw the episode where the guy was going to be, his clone was, his consciousness was going to go be infused into his clone.
Sure. He's going to be the first download.
Yeah. It's like,
which, by the way, that'll come into play in season 2 as well, I would think.
Oh, I'm sure.
But, yeah.
I would assume, yeah. But, you think there's no talk of any digital life where, like, androids or anything. There's no talk of that.
That's a good point.
That's
a good. There's
and I don't see why not. You couldn't have even if it was just beady 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 or something. You could that's way
easily
a digital person we could move around in that world. So it would be
with the tech we've seen them have. Yeah. You could easily have a rudimentary, probably much more than rudimentary, automaton. Basically, with your personality, and you can interact with the world.
Yeah,
you're right. There's this. What is death? Right. So hey, we're in this digital afterlife. Yeah. But the notion
they build up this the Luddite. What are they upset about other than the fact that people want to live in some virtual life? What other aspects? I mean, obviously, the fact they don't have much water or whatever. They're probably the same environmental forces, but it's further in the future that's affecting people's lives and. The fact that they had to pack into airplanes and stuff like that, and maybe there's a lot more population density in some places, and the rich people are really having far too much space.
I would guess too that probably based on what we see with Nora's dad, I would guess that part of their whole argument is this it's a affront to nature kind of thing. Hey, the body is meant to die, and the soul goes off to heaven, and you're interfering with that, and that can only result in terrible consequences.
Right, but it's probably also too, though, the extent that technology ends up spying on you and all that. So that probably another aspect of getting out into areas that. I just looked here that the Poconos is where they were talking about going.
Oh, okay, but that could still be off the grid.
A fun weekend in the Poconos is what he's talking about.
Okay,
but yeah.
Which, by the way, here's a theory as well. I feel like Byron. Maybe there's we'll learn a little more conspiracy-ish thing with Byron.
Yeah, well, that's one of the funny things, the way people act. His whole thing about. It's just so odd. All his reactions is so odd. Wow, I really want to be with you, but
he has no reason to want to be with her.
Yeah, no.
It's played comedically. It's funny that she keeps trying to push him off, and he's like, so that works in a comedy sense.
Yes, it does.
But if you really start breaking it down, you're like, he is suspicious in his interest in staying with her. I see it almost as to make a Westworld comparison, what we learned about the Rico app. Right, so it was AI was using people to control folks. I almost feel like maybe he's been sent out to get on this date with her, and then anyway, because he starts dating her after she has become Nathan's angel. Theoretically, he could have been targeted to meet her because she was Nathan's angel, and he's just trying to.
I mean, it's a really strange sort of thing where he only tries to interact with her when she reaches out to him.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I get it. It almost would be better if it wasn't a conspiracy. Just have people be odd for no particular reason. I'm good with that. But it might be that he is, for instance, oh, look, we're out in the middle of nowhere in the Poconos. This will be good. She learns some kind of information. Wait, Nathan does love me. And then suddenly, oh, no, I'm in danger again because this guy now is, trying to keep me here or something. But I was going to say about the digital afterlife and the fact that what is death, what is life. Another kind of disturbing factor is this thing where, so Nathan has a conversation with Jamie. It's actually a very timely conversation for Nathan because he's trying to find a way to easily break up with Ingrid, and Jamie gives it to him, which is, hey, by the way, I slept with your girlfriend. Oh! Right. Well, that makes it easy. Now I can break up in good conscience. Yes. But the other thing he does is he says, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. First of all, I didn't kill you, and I believe Jamie when he says that.
Yeah.
He's like, and I did sleep with Ingrid, and I'm sorry, and here I've got $3,000. It's yours. And so Nathan uses that to pay for a certain amount of time in the 2-gig world.
Right.
But he then also, we see this, he has a talk with, it sounds like, I don't know, a lawyer or something? He and his mom are talking with an agent or something. He's like, hey, you should, you can't stay in Lakeview, blah, blah, blah. And he says well, yeah, you could use your 2 gig and then, you get cut off until more money comes.
Right.
which is what we see at the end of this. But that's okay. You're somebody who's not connected now. Somehow you got into Lakeview, so you had some money at some point. But at some point, the money runs out. Easily, you could imagine.
Right.
You died without kids or whatever, and you had a trust fund, and the trust fund runs out.
And they say a price. They say $10,000.
Yeah, they do mention that. Okay, so what? Well, okay, there's got to be. People seem to be there forever, more or less. At some point, your money's going to run out. Do you just sit there still? For you come alive for a few minutes each month and then you're out, or not at all? Maybe you never come back, and they just have like stalls full of people that are essentially dead, waiting for cash to come their way. It seems like that's another part that needs to be answered to me. So it's like, you got a world full of people that could just end like nothing. There's nothing happening. It's just a storage for inanimate, consciousnesses. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Anyway, because
maybe it's. I mean, they showed us the Koch brothers guy, who clearly has enough money to be doing it for quite a long time.
And as soon as they announced the Easter egg hunt, like, we're doing an Easter egg hunt, $1 million? Lakeview Bucks and $1,000 free? I was like, that guy's going to win it.
Yeah.
Choke guy's going to get it. And sure enough, Choke guy's like, hey, I got it. You're like,
I was rooting for him, though, because it's like, wow, listen to her. No, listen, she's trying to, you dumbass. So I was like,
that's true.
If anybody's gonna get it, I want him to get it, because.
Alicia was trying very hard to get Luke to find the stuff, and he was being stupid.
Yes.
Walked right past it. Look under those crates. I got no time. I'm looking under these chairs. There's just some very, very dark overtones to how this world works.
Yeah.
Which are just kind of really fascinating. It's one of the things I really appreciate about the show.
You're a dark person.
Am I, Paul?
You
are. So we've got the tells Ingrid off. She obviously, doesn't take it well.
No.
There's an interesting conversation that she has with her dad.
Yes.
Where she basically accuses him, or insinuates that he had Nathan bumped off.
Right.
She says, like, I saw what you did with the car. I changed it back to occupant protection or whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't. His reaction doesn't. You could read it either way. You could either read the "what the hell are you talking about," or you could read it like, "You shut up about that." Yeah. I couldn't tell.
I feel like it's in that latter category.
Okay, so you feel like he is the killer then? I mean, the implication is he is, but
I suspect that it might be more complicated than that. Or at least
I think
it's
he's
more
more complicated.
Doing something and it turns out somebody else. Because, it's I don't think it follows necessarily that Nora's life would be in danger as a result of that. Well, I guess she's looking into it. I guess, but
something that when we see this memory of Nathan making the off agreement with Ingrid's dad. One of the things is I do want to see more, right? I want to see whether they actually made the deal, which
I assume they did.
Annoyingly, they didn't. We didn't see him make the deal. He just says it would take a lot of money for me to want to do that.
One of the things that we see is Jamie and Nathan having a little conversation where basically he's saying, "Oh, we had a handshake agreement." He doesn't have any actual ownership in that stuff. So if he were to get code, it sounds like there'd be some legal thing, like he doesn't actually have a right to sell it. He would be giving something away that he doesn't actually own. He only worked on it. So perhaps then you might open yourself up to, hey, we just looked at your code and it's clear that you got it from him, and so now you're legally screwed up because you fucked up. But it doesn't seem, since he's whispering that to him, maybe he doesn't know that, and so
another thought.
It's a strange thing, like the person that was working on it with you kill.
Another thought occurred to me, which is we've seen already his memory got tampered with.
Right.
It got partially deleted. Then there was this weird explosion that happened in the servers, and everybody got turned into 8 gigs for a while. Right. And now they're coming back, and he's got his memories back.
Right.
easily within the reality that this world has established, he could be looking at a fake memory. Like, in other words, somebody decided, let's just make him the guilty party. Oh, look, you did agree, when actually, it's kind of like, this is a Harry Potter reference, but when Slughorn has the memory that he changed in his mind of shooing Voldemort away, when actually he actually told Voldemort, here's how you create a Horcrux. Murder a bunch of people and put your soul in their bodies. You're like, oh, God. Anyway, so maybe similar to that, his actual memory is different than what we're seeing and what he's basing his reality on. Maybe.
I mean, I feel like it's more likely that it's just something we haven't seen.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that earlier in the season, I threw out a potential, like, not a theory as much as, but like, it would be interesting if the actual Nathan wasn't necessarily the best guy, and that he becomes a better person post-death in a way. Like that, hey, look, I'm learning about, how to be a better person here in this afterlife. So by that reasoning, this actually would kind of make sense that, look, I wasn't an angel, so to speak, back in the day, but I'm seeing the error of my ways now, and so that I have growth, even though I've stopped growing physically. So I guess I would almost prefer him to maybe have some errors in his own, like a flawed morality. But I can see how the story might, because it is playing with the nature of what is memory, where does the digital end and the human part begin, and if you could, like, hey, if you just inserted a digital memory, now you think you did it, so potentially that could be a way that they're
I guess. I mean,
going.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I'd rather him actually have that memory.
All right. I think we're in agreement. That's what we'd rather see. Yes, he breaks off with Ingrid. He gets ready to go to 2G jail. He is told, hey, when you're in 2G, don't react to stuff. Keep your emotions there, because if you react to stuff, that's where your data plan gets used. And so that's why he's trying to stay emotionless, like a Zen master almost, when he's talking to Nora.
Yes.
I can't talk right now. I'm trying to be. So, it doesn't work. He uses that cool tool to, like, make he and Nora invisible at one point. That's pretty powerful.
I'm curious what you think about. I didn't want to steer you in a. Well, I tried to keep you going in a particular direction where Ingrid was concerned.
Oh, sure. Yeah, here's the deal. It feels like my version of the way this season was going to go the season would have ended at the end of episode 9. Like, that was pretty much what I saw this thing going with. And then there's an episode 10. And yeah, damn it, if they didn't, like, bring Ingrid totally right back into the middle of things. Yeah. I thought Ingrid's now, but nope. No, so it's really, actually, to the show's credit, I think it's actually really interesting that they've done this thing now where it's like the person that he rejected has now said, look, I made this giant commitment to be here for you. And so, like, now he's going to have to be with her, and I mean, at least interact with her on a daily basis. It's almost like he's in hell now, right? I mean, I'm here with my ex. Every day she's going to hunt me down. So that is fascinating, and I don't
and it's
know
like
where that's
somebody
going.
else, like, they were painting an impression of Nathan in the world, and I guess if you want to sort of extrapolate from the kind of person that he was based on his relationship with Ingrid, and the fact that he sold out his friend. I mean, he really wanted wealth, because his family was impoverished or whatever, and so that was important to him. And so him going out with somebody who was wealthy, they both have an interest in wealth, although from different perspectives. And the fact that now she's, like, not in a way that you would sort of typically see, like, say, It Happened One Night, where the rich girl realizes by hanging out with the person who was lower, who, I now really renounce my. It's different because she still had the same values. So for her, her arc is going to be, learning more about probably about herself, but it's not going to be just sort of, okay, I'm giving up all the superficial things. It's going to take a little longer for her, and so that's why I feel like it's doing the same thing that that other show, The Good Place, is doing, where it's like we found these characters and now we're just going to focus on how their lives move. And so while it seems, what you were imagining, in the way they've kind of fooled you into thinking, oh, this is how this character is going to behave, clearly she wants something more, and that's why she's so desperate to maintain this relationship that clearly...
Also, we feel like, I mean, based on her relationship with her dad, which is terrible.
Yeah,
and the fact that she wasn't making a lot of money.
That scene that everybody insulting and
So I would think that perhaps the money is going to get cut off for her too. Perhaps she could find herself not being able to get all of the perks that she is hoping to have.
I would think it's probably not immediate. I mean, I can't believe that she was living that life, and even if it was mostly money from getting from her parents, and she still had a job. She was saying she was paying her own money to have him exist. She was saying that it wasn't money she was getting from her family. So presumably she has some money, and I would think she would have more than $10,000.
Yeah, she probably also thought ahead, like, hey, when I go, I want to make sure that I'm cared for, so I'm going to put this money aside.
Might try to ration it or something, or it may be something that's mid-season or even the end of the season.
Where she tries to show solidarity with him, maybe, or something.
Yeah, or something. But, I don't know. And certainly one of the things, too, that perhaps will change, or maybe they'll find a way to get around it, is the whole thing about how digital people can't have jobs. Like, why can't they have fronts, like in the front, where it's like, I'm actually, not very intelligent or smart or whatever, but I've got one of those guys in the digital world who does my work, and then...
Yeah, like, for instance, we saw the guy early on who had, like, essentially a YouTube channel. Was that YouTube channel just for digital folks?
Right.
Or was that a YouTube channel in the real world?
Yeah.
It could be, right? There's no reason why it couldn't be, except for the fact that there's no, you can't work, maybe. So maybe just a cultural thing that they won't let him. Let's move into
then of him paying for him being in, that place.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, he gets money by doing stuff in the digital world and kind of breaking that
sells
moray.
It for the company. So it's like, wow, isn't it great here? Look at all this stuff that you're doing, and so that could be,
Isn't it great here in 2G land? But I do think that he's got the crafting tool now. I think if you give him enough data and some time, I think he can probably make his world, or that 2G, which is what he wants to do. He wanted equality for these people who couldn't afford to live in Lakeview. So maybe he kind of changes it from the inside.
Is that your theory?
As opposed to... That's not the theory. But
you just got all these theories.
I got all these theories. But so in other words, he had the idea of, like, let's create a competitor.
Yes.
Maybe instead it ends up being, all right, screw it. We'll change it from inside out. And he ends up making Lakeview into like an equality paradise.
I don't think we've seen any other coders in that world.
Yeah, good point. There probably would be, but nope, we haven't seen them.
Yeah.
Maybe Jamie will sacrifice himself to come on. So there's that. There's that we talked about a little earlier in this little chat, which was the download scenario. I foresee that to come into play somehow, and I guess the way. Nope, that's not the theory. That's a theory. I see it like. I mean, the obvious way to make it work would be that Nathan has a chance to come back to the real world, but for some reason either Nora's already in the digital world and he wants to be with her, or what, there's some reason that he doesn't want to then come back into the real world, or he's making that choice somehow. And that could be a thing. I don't know. How do you see the download angle being played into the plot?
I don't know if it's something that is the end of the series, or but it might be an aspect of where it's like it seemed like it's going to end, and that's like their plan for how it moves towards the end. Like,
I got you. So they come back to the real world, basically where they left off physically, but they have all this extra experience.
I was thinking of this other show, this Boris Karloff thing. I think it's called The Man Who Would Not Die or something. And he's a scientist, and he comes up with a way to have someone, when somebody's injured or whatever, and they're like, oh, his brain is running out of oxygen, he's gonna die, and that person's died, then that's it, he's dead, you can't do anything. But the doctor figures out a way, Boris Karloff, to bring someone back to life. So he actually, the start of it, it's not spoiling anything. Well, it's just a stupid movie.
Yeah, you could. But spoil away.
His medical student that is working for him is like, I'll do it, kill me. And his girlfriend is like, so he gets, the police come along, before he can save him, he gets sent to jail. So he's like, I'll get all of you. But anyway, potentially in this show, if you could, not die, you could always be put back into a clone or whatever, then that's,
sure,
eternal life. So, and if then it's like, maybe that takes away the whole aspect of, what's the difference between somebody living in a digital world and working, and somebody put into a meat body to walk around? What's the difference there? So then it just becomes a matter of, I guess, just who has enough money, but then that's the world we already live in. So, yeah.
Question we want to answer.
To me, it comes closer to the Altered Carbon world, where basically it's like,
Boop.
Death has lost its meaning in terms of that, and people can move around in different bodies or whatever like that. So,
once the download becomes effective, then you're pretty much like, oh, who cares?
To me, that's why the world is so interesting, right? Because all the things that we would expect to happen in a world like that don't happen, where it's like, oh, you've seen these avatars who burst off into all these other people, but what's to stop, okay, I've got my digital copies of myself around doing different things, or, I'm here in the digital world, but also there's me walking out in the real world, I don't see why there would be that necessarily. I think it's an artificial one. I think that's one thing to talk about, like, in that world. What I assume is some sort of law that says you can't, exist in more than one place.
Right.
It's
I think you're right.
Imposed rule and not an actual, like, scientifically you can't.
Kind of what we were talking about with not working. It's an imposed rule. It's a cultural thing for whatever reason. Right? No, can't do it. Why? Because you can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another thing we want to learn about is what was the purpose of that explosion in the servers.
Yeah, that sabotage there.
Yeah, it seemed purposeful. It wasn't just like a rioter trying to blow up the place. It was something. So what was that all about? I think we'll figure that out in season 2. I assume we're going to see Nora and Nathan come back together in some way, which means that Ingrid will get turned aside again, but she'll be, will she find happiness? Will she just be eternally pining for Nathan, or will she be like, okay, maybe we are done?
Or maybe they're planning on, it's interesting that Jamie said she didn't like him, then they had to say, why? Why would they even need to, didn't he betray him enough? Why did she have to have a little, interaction with them? I don't know that necessarily they needed to have that, So it makes me wonder if they're really deliberate in making that happen. That's sort of a long play that they're building up to.
All right, now
Because actually, in terms of this season, Jamie really wasn't very much of a major character. He represented.
No, he was always gone.
Right.
Like, let me call him. Oh, he's not there.
So that may be something. Especially the fact that they established they had a sexual relationship.
Right. He is the best friend of the lead, and he had an affair with the lead's girlfriend.
Right.
Probably important to the plot. All right, here you go. Here is way out there theory. This is. I almost hesitate to say this. Okay. All right. Actually, you helped me set this up a little bit in some of the stuff you said earlier in our chat. Okay. We were talking about the fact that it seems like Ingrid's dad is the most likely culprit to have killed Nathan, but you said, well, it seems like there might be. It seems a little too simple. Like there's more to it, perhaps. And indeed, I'm going with that notion of, okay, if this is indeed it's a murder mystery, they're extending out at least 2 seasons.
Right.
You wouldn't just give up the mystery angle, and whoever is the most likely candidate now probably isn't the murderer. So the most likely candidate now is Ingrid's dad.
Right.
You're like, okay, well then 9 episodes from now, if you're like, yep, it was her dad, you're like, yeah, we knew that all along. So I'm going to say it's not him. And if that's true, then who would it be? Ooh. Plus, I'll say this. I'm going to go with the idea that you're not going to... You could introduce a completely new character in season 2, and that character could be the one who killed him off. Could be. But it's less compelling than having a character we've already met who would like, oh, had something to do with it. So here you go.
Yes.
It's a character I brought up, not realizing I was even thinking about this theory at the time. But I brought him up, I think, last time we chatted. It was like, you know what? I kind of like the performance of this guy. He's kind of interesting. Okay. I think perhaps, I can't even say it with a straight face, but I think perhaps the killer...
The AI guy?
The AI. Here's where I'm going with it. Nathan created...
I thought you were going to say Ingrid's dad. I said not Ingrid's dad. I mean Nora's dad.
Nora's dad, the Luddite.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, sure, that would be even better, Paul. That's a great theory. Paul's theory, everybody. Nora's dad is the big bad of the show. My thought is, here's my reasoning for this very unlikely theory. Okay, Nathan created this product that can basically make AIs kind of useless, right? Like, hey, here's a build your own world. We don't need this Lakeview stuff. Perhaps the AI that has been built to support Lakeview sees that as a threat. And so it's like, basically we've seen that Nathan can kill someone in the real world so perhaps the AI reached out, screwed with his car, killed him. And so is like basically, trying to keep Nathan in Lakeview, and he's happy to have him there. As long as he's there, he can't do stupid stuff. But that the ultimate baddie is the AI that was created to, control, to manipulate, to work Lakeview, as represented by the red-haired attendant guy. Anyway, red-haired attendant guy, the big bad of the show. There you go. As I say it sounds weird, but there we go. I'm on record.
All right, I hear you.
2 years from now, or whenever this show comes back for season 2, we'll mark this down. Victory! I win all the virtual dollars. I found the egg. Is what happened.
The Twitter egg.
Yeah, there we go. That's the Twitter egg. All right. So anyway, that's any final thoughts on the show, good sir? Cool. So this wraps up our chat about Upload. We've got 3 very compelling shows that are all coming up in weeks ahead. They're all coming out at the same time. We're like, but we'll figure this out. Yeah. Umbrella Academy Season 2. We covered Season 1. If you want to go check that out before Season 2 comes along, check out the recaps for that. But we're going to do that for sure. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The first of the Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus coming out in August. And then also Lovecraft, excuse me, it's easy for me to say, Lovecraft Country is coming out on HBO, also in August, date to be determined. All 3 of those shows, if any of them were just being shown by themselves, they're just like, oh look, there's only one show to cover, we would cover it. Can we cover all 3? We'll find out, but we'll do our best on that. But that's our thought. So stay tuned for that.
Falcon and Winter Snowman.
Falcon and the Snowman. Falcon and the Winter Snowman. I like it.
And the Winter Soldier is probably going to be week to week, which should work better, I think, for our purposes.
That's true. Umbrella Academy is Netflix, so I think that just drops.
That all, yeah.
Good point. Good point. And obviously, Lovecraft Country would also be a week to week because it's HBO.
Yes, right.
So, but yes. So anyway, we'll be back talking about that kind of stuff. Come on back for that, and thank you so much as always, Paul.
Oh, you're welcome.
Just waiting for those virtual dollars to come in when the AI turns out to be the killer. Woo!
Virtual dollars.
Virtual dollars. All right, thanks, sir.
All right.
See you, everybody. Bye.